Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the current headlines in the news is Len Carter. Len is an experienced investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Hello again. It's Wednesday, 6:30. We took a hiatus because of the Shavuos holiday, a very important holiday in the Jewish religion. It was a time then that Moses went up to Mount Sinai and met with God and got the tablets, the two tablets, which in essence are the basis of the Torah. But anyway, it's a happy holiday. We have a lot of sad holidays, although we try to make them happy. Like Passover is essentially, a sad holiday because we were suffering over 200 years of slavery. The Jewish people were. But it was a happy holiday. We were breaking out of the slavery. So, and that's the attitude we should always have and take, even now with what's going on in Israel. The Jewish people overwhelmingly throughout the world are behaving like they're in love with each other, care for each other. So we're trying to make it that it brings us the sadness that occurs, and it's been a very sad period after October 7th. And the brutality, the savagery, the multiple rapes of our young women that were taken hostage, it's beyond belief. But we really are a very resilient people, because no matter what they try to do to us, we bounce back and we're bigger than ever. We're not more. We don't have a much bigger population than ever, but we have an attitude that's even what's his name, Jerry Springer, is he?
Talk show host guy?
Yeah. He's been in Israel, and he's been in Australia, and he's become a big spokesman for the Jewish people. Anyway, I'm delighted to have Len Carter back this week. As many of you have commented about it in the past, he is terrific. He's brilliant. I did tell you he was top of his class of Harvard Business School, same school that I graduated from only many years before him. He's a kid. And he got every school he went to, he was top of his class. So he was a graduate engineer at Cornell University, one of the great Ivy League schools. And then at Stanford University, he did advanced degrees in engineering. So I'm delighted to have him back, and I'm delighted to be back with you all. I missed you. So you're my partners in this podcast, my cohorts, whatever. If it's a good podcast, it's primarily due to you. If it's a weak one or a adverse one, then it's primarily due to me. So you can blame me if it's not exciting, and you can give yourselves and Len Carter the credit if it is worth. Before I launch into the things that have a tendency to depress us, that's the current days, and
which is pretty much everything.
Right. the prevailing events, the importance, political happenings, the wars and so forth. The news is depressing. So before we get into that, we'll try to make it more understandable and happier. But really, what my primary goal is to do what God has instructed each of us to do, to change the world and make it a better place for all humanity. And I want to put more smiles on more faces, people close to me, my family, my kids, my grandkids, my associates, my friends. So I wrote this book that you see right in front of you here, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And if you get a chance, I would urge you to go out and buy it, because it's worth many times the cost of the book. It'll give you a lift, it'll give you joy, it'll give you laughs. And it's really gathered a lot of the universal wisdom about happiness. And as I told you in the past, I have so much confidence in this book and the ability to make you happy and for you to enjoy it and appreciate it and think it was a great purchase, or if it as a gift, a great gift, that I said, if you're not happy with it, if you send me a purchase price, I'll send you back. Not only you can keep the book, I'll send you back your whatever you paid for it twice over. Anyway, I also like to give you a lunch with some specific approach to life that should help make you happy. And that is, ideally, you should set a goal. You don't start out on any day or on any vacation or anything that you want to do and enjoy without deciding where your destination is. What's your goal? It's even in anticipation of fulfilling that goal, of getting to the place. Pick something that you love and go for it. A goal that you can fulfill and go for it. Go for it. And every day of your life, keep your eye on that goal. But also, the one thing I would urge is that you pick a goal that you know you love, but also that is within your talents and capacity to enjoy, to fulfill. But make sure you have the capacity, because I get paid to keep quiet when the singing starts. My singing is too depressing.
All right.
Put me to sleep.
So now that you're happy, now we can make you less happy by launching into some of the topics this week. I thought we would talk about a number of different headlines, sort of a smorgasbord of of some news stories, because there have been a few in the last couple of weeks. One that I think is a topic we've discussed in the past that keeps coming up, and we remain puzzled as to why it is such a issue, is assault weapons, and how we keep providing legal means for us to kill ourselves. So we saw just recently that the Supreme Court overturned a ban on gun bump stocks. So just by way of background, so in 2017, there was a huge mass shooting in Las Vegas. 58 people were killed and over 500, I think, were wounded. This is, at the time, the largest, and maybe still the largest, mass shooting ever. And the person responsible was able to do that so easily by using a bump stock. He was able to essentially shoot like a machine gun. So that was in 2017. Trump was the president at the time, and even at the time realized that there needed to be something done about people's ability to massively kill each other. So Trump had his the federal agency, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ban bump stocks because they made regular guns behave like machine guns. Machine guns have been outlawed since, I don't know, the 30s, when the gangsters of the 30s and 40s were when machine guns first came out, they were so heinous that they were legislatively banned, rightfully so. And then this inventor comes out with a device, an invention that allows a regular gun to be turned into essentially a machine gun. So Trump comes out and bans this, bans bump stocks, they're called. And since 2017 or 18, whenever the ban went into place, they've been illegal, because with the argument being that it may not be a machine gun with a gun with a bump stock may not technically be a machine gun, but it certainly behaves like a machine gun and therefore should be banned. So there's been a ban, and then someone brought a case.
I'm surprised that Donald Trump was the one that banned.
When I first heard that, yes,
very strong advocate.
I was
of the National Rifle Association.
Yes. I mean,
and the Second Amendment.
Yes, and I actually had to double take my reading of that because the news stories that talk about this Supreme Court case that just came out mention it, talk of it as a Trump era federal ban, because it was Donald Trump who actually came out with that. So surprising that would be something. You wouldn't think of that happening under a Trump administration, but it did. And so someone brought a case to say that, this should not be allowed. The ATF should not have the right to make these bans. And a gun with a bump stock is not a machine gun, because a machine gun, technically, you pull the trigger and it just keeps shooting. One pull of the trigger. Pull, shoot, 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 shoot. With a bump stock, you actually have to trigger, 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 but the bump stock just makes it much more easy to do that. So the Supreme Court and I think either the majority opinion or an opinion was written by Clarence Thomas, who said that because a bump stock is not a single trigger pull, it's a technicality, but it's not a machine gun, and therefore it's not appropriate to ban it. So they overturned it. So I guess the first question is, do you think that was, an opinion that was right? If you were on the court, do you overturn that ban?
I'd overturn Thomas. It's the biggest disappointment of anybody. He replaced a great African American justice.
Who did he replace? Reagan appointed Thomas, didn't he? Oh, Thurgood Marshall?
Thurgood Marshall. Who was a liberal,
yeah,
and did things for his people.
Yeah.
Thomas is the most elitist justice ever. He was a buddy of Scalia. The two of them said, you got to read the Constitution as a fundamentalist.
Yeah.
Exactly as it was spoken. And then they go on, and the two of them, and interpret it in that way. And I couldn't disagree with them more. But Thomas has turned out to be the biggest jerk and the biggest...
I mean, it does seem like a distinction without a difference, as they say, that if something behaves like a machine gun, does it really matter that it's one trigger or multiple triggers? If it behaves like a machine gun and is just as deadly as a machine gun, then in my view, it should be treated and banned like a machine gun.
We got to keep one here, so we can test it every week.
So I guess, I sort of asked myself, what does it take? Another mass shooting before it seemed to work. In 2017, even a conservative pro-NRA, pro-Second Amendment conservative like Trump actually, that surprisingly now, given how, strong he is again in favor of gun rights, that even he did it. So, what will it take for people to realize that, the average person doesn't need a machine gun? I mean, even a hunter, you're not even allowed to hunt with an AR-15. So the only purpose, it's like you can't even say we need to have these guns to hunt, because you're not allowed to hunt with
You're allowed to hunt human beings.
The only thing you're allowed to.
That's what it was created for.
Yes, but private citizens, it's just, are allowed to own AR-15s, but aren't allowed to use them in anything except a gun range. So recreation, if you will, recreation is the only legal use for an AR-15. You can't hunt. You can't use it as a, any other concealed weapon or any. You can't use it as protection. It's either for mass killing or recreation, target practice. Target practice for what? What are you target practicing for, right? So, the argument was that it's not a machine gun. All right, I don't really buy that. Now, so how do you fix it? I think Senator Schumer actually has it right on this. He's introducing legislation to legislatively ban bump stocks. If that happens, then the Supreme Court can't say you can't overrule that, because, well, I guess they probably could.
Yeah.
They could say that it violates the Second Amendment. I mean, they haven't done it with machine guns, which at some level I'm surprised someone hasn't brought a case to the Supreme Court to say, why can't I own a machine gun under the Second Amendment? But that hasn't happened yet. I'm actually surprised it hasn't, now that I think about it.
That's the biggest miracle, because the NRA has been able to keep every horrendous weapon that was developed brought out to the public and participate.
But I think that's the right move. Is, it's like reproductive rights. The only way to really ensure that abortion at some level is legal would be to legislate it, to codify Roe v. Wade through legislation. Similarly, by legislation to ban bump stocks would do the same thing and would have the same effect. So I think that's what he's looking to do. It's not likely that's going to go through, because this is an election year, and any gun issue is a gun issue, right? And even though it's not that hard to make the case that bump stocks are not really good things for people to have, it's a vote against weapons. And that's, there's definitely, congressmen who want to do that. So I think the fate of that legislation is probably pretty grim. But it brings a question we were talking about before, like the Supreme Court. It was a 6-3 decision, this and right down conservative and liberal lines. That in when this came out, people started to talk about how do you even maintain a 6-3 split, and people have been saying that Justice Sotomayor should resign. She's one of the 3 liberal justices appointed by President Obama. She's only 69 years old, but she's had some health issues. So, should she resign? You think someone like that should resign to give, right now there's a unique window, possibly a small window, of a liberal president and at least majority Senate. So it would be possible for a Democratic nominated Supreme Court justice to get through, just like Ketanji Jackson was approved, because the Senate was able to get 51 votes. So what's your thought on Justice Sotomayor early retirement in order to avoid what could happen? One of 2 things could happen in the fall. If Trump wins, he's never going to appoint, should he have the chance, a liberal justice, forget it. And if the Republicans take the Senate, they would never, they'll never allow, a confirmation vote to come before the Senate. So what do you think? Should Sotomayor early retire to ensure that at least you have, a footing of a liberal justice?
Well, I think my feelings, because I've expressed them often enough. But Australia had one assault weapon mass shooting, and it goes back to 95 or something, 1995. Unlike the United States, well, right after the shooting occurred in Connecticut, of, I think, 20 little kids and 2 or 3 teachers.
Sandy Hook shooting?
Sandy Hook. And the next day, the next week, the next month, the NRA was proud to announce that the number of sales of new guns
But way out. So that is that remains an enigma to me as to why things that seem pretty obvious in terms of protecting ourselves from ourselves.
Well, because it's what's wrong with our form of capitalism and our form of democracy. Capitalism is great, but unless it's somehow regulated, we get what we got recently, which is, they don't call it inflation anymore, they call it greedflation. In other words, Trump gave them, the wealthiest people, and particularly corporations, a big tax cut, $2 trillion tax cut. And one would have hoped that you take that money and create jobs that launch people on careers, and it becomes a good thing for all the people. Instead, they turned it over. They went out and bought shares in a company. Yeah.
And dividends and restructurings. So more return to shareholders, as opposed to any other benefit.
More payback.
Right.
I was thinking about that philosophically over the last few days, that we were so critical of communism and so such big endorsers of capitalism. But we become really a better description of what we have as opposed to what Adam Smith described as free, what do you call free? No,
Invisible hand?
free choice, free market.
Mm-hmm.
Free market, let the markets run themselves. And let the richest people become as rich as they want, that's good. And government even helps them by reducing their taxes, so it increases their wealth and their power to influence. But we've developed a sort of modified communism, and if you think about it, under Roosevelt, when I was young, they called Roosevelt a communist because he was helping poor people live a somewhat better life. It was a long way from communism. But communism takes all of the income of all the people and shares it up more equally. So the ones at the top may have a little better life, maybe not a little better. And the bottom, people at the bottom do have a better life. But that's a form of communism because it's taken to in our society. We take from the rich,
right,
and then we give it to the
a redistribution of wealth.
Yeah, and of course, many of the people at the top argue, "What the hell are they taking my money? I worked for it. I broke my neck. I did that, and I got to give it to the government to give to the people that don't work." So it seems very unfair.
Let's talk about another issue that was in the news recently, related to crime. So, there's a Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court agreed to hear a case involving the scope of the legal doctrine called qualified immunity, where which protects police officers from civil claims. So, the case is just agreed to go to the court, but an interesting topic. It sort of relates to the Trump immunity case, because under the argument that the president sometimes has to do things that make the hard decisions, drop bombs on other countries or harm other people. Police have to do the same thing. In a split second, have to decide whether the person they're chasing or person they believe to be a criminal is dangerous. So if they make the wrong decision, should they be held liable for that? It's like the president. Should the president be held liable for war decisions that he or she would make? I don't know. What do you think? Should a policeman? On the other hand, they don't want. If just like you can't give the president blanket immunity, because nobody should have blanket immunity.
You don't know that yet. The ruling hasn't come back.
True, but I'll say I don't believe you should, because I don't think anyone should have blanket immunity. So how do you sort of see that through the lens of police, where they clearly have an important function? It's a tough, there are tough decisions to make, and sometimes in retrospect maybe they were the wrong decisions, but they had to be made. And if you don't let them make it, then are you putting the society in jeopardy or danger? So I don't know.
These are not easy questions to answer. We had this African American that the police put a chokehold on for about 5 minutes or something.
That's good.
George Floyd, and he's the biggest hero now, and it's looked up to and so forth. Even though based on his track record, he shouldn't be honored that much. I'm not sure I want to condemn him, because I didn't see the results of the trial. But there was one thing that bothered me about that case, and that it was, in other words, the cop, the policeman, that put the chokehold on him, even though he hadn't. Even if he didn't do murder for directly.
Yeah.
With Paul, right?
Even though he didn't.
What was his name then?
George Floyd?
George Floyd. Not Paul. Floyd, even though he may have killed him, but it was certainly not beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Right.
Because they brought expert witnesses that it could have been from some medical condition that brought it about. Maybe his putting his chokehold on for a few minutes precipitated it. Or it could have been that he's on drugs, because that was another expert's testimony. But definitely not beyond it. Well, what's his name? He died in the last few weeks. O.J. Simpson. And he beat it also, because there wasn't beyond the shadow of a doubt. Because
in his case, his defense attorneys really put the LA Police Department on trial, and put enough doubt in the jury's mind that evidence was planted, evidence wasn't handled right, that this was not. It was not. It was.
If the glove don't fit, you must acquit.
Right.
But
so there were a lot of legal missteps in the O.J. Simpson trial for sure.
Well, I want to write a book. Black lives matter, absolutely. But if they matter so much, I want the black leaders to explain to their people, since they matter, let's help them lead lives that are advanced with each generation, that takes care of the kids, mothers take care of the kids, and the fathers stay with the kids, at least through the first maybe 10 years, so they get the benefit of it. So far, we haven't made much progress.
So on the similar dimension of crime, so I think it was last week or the week before, there was a subway incident where people on the subway were assaulted by, or accosted, I should say, by some guys who were like, "Who's the Zionists on this train? And are you, calling out on people?" I believe they were wearing masks. And so it's interesting, Governor Hochul now is coming out and saying she's considering bringing back a ban on masks in New York. Prior to the pandemic, you were not allowed to wear a mask in public.
Unless you were robbing the bank.
Unless you were robbing a bank or had a health condition, immune compromise or some reason. During the pandemic, obviously those rules were modified, not just to include the ability to have masks, but requirement to have masks. Now, with that as as less of a health issue, now it goes back to people using masks to commit crimes. And even Mayor Adams has come out and said he agrees with Governor Hochul's thought to introduce a mask ban because it allows people to more easily commit crimes. So, that's another interesting view. Should you go back to, should we not allow people to wear masks because they can more easily commit crimes? In spite of the fact that it probably reduces the spreading of disease, whatever it may be, even if it's just flus or pneumonias or COVID or whatever it may be. So, do you think that the reduction of crime outweighs the health risk?
I think if you can demonstrate that you're ugly enough that you scare people,
they should be required to wear a mask.
Right. Certainly should be allowed, even required. So these are the major issues of the day. People are getting killed in wars throughout the world. And then the United States is probably the most involved in providing the wherewithal to everybody do these killings and slaughtering and so forth. And it's so heartbreaking when you see the picture of these young men and women that are in the military that are being killed by other young people that are equally. There are times when things are not allowed should be allowed. So there's no universal law that always has to be, that there could be instances where even the good law could be violated, or the other way around, a bad law could be sustained and allowed.
Yeah. We are almost out of time. Wanted to maybe just get one, your thoughts. We haven't talked about some of the going-ons in Israel over the last couple of weeks. Prime Minister Netanyahu just announced recently he's disbanding his war cabinet. What do you think that'll have any impact on much of anything, or not so much?
I don't know if that's even an overriding consideration or discussion going on, whether is there too much anti-Semitism, and should anything be done to stop it? Maybe some people feel it should be the freedom of people to establish or assert their view towards other peoples. This is fundamental. And for the Jews, it's been more than fundamental. It's been horrific in terms of the consequences, because the reaction towards peace, the Jewish people, has been atrocious in terms of, especially by young people at universities. So that's very discouraging, very depressing. As far as Netanyahu, I don't know, it depends how he carries out this assignment. He's been hit with it. He definitely, he and his administration definitely deserve to be criticized, to be censured, because what happened on October 7th should never have been allowed to happen. They know there's an enemy there. They know there's an enemy that in the past has attacked them and hated them, and is capable of doing harmful things. So how they let that first day that.
All right, so that's enough depression for the week. I think we'll be back next week. We've got a debate coming up between the two candidates, but not next week. I think we'll be talking about that the following week, because I think it's
next Thursday.
Yeah, so we'll have one more show before the debate, and then discuss the debate the following show. But thanks for having me on. And
thanks for joining.
Thank you.
You are terrific, and I love you, and I keep coming back. I have other people that volunteer who've been on before, including rabbis and other clergy and professors and politicians, but nobody could replace you.
Thank you.
You're terrific.
All right, thank you.
Are you related to Jimmy Carter? I think you're a little young.
We both like peanuts.
What?
We both like peanuts.
Peanuts. Anyway, thank you. And thank you all for joining in. I came into this program somewhat exhausted. I hope I didn't put you to sleep, but I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning reading and working. So if I did lose my place a couple of times, so be it. I apologize. But anyway, you all have a good week, a great week. Get a copy of this great book, Happiness Guaranteed. or your misery back. I promise you. It will add, not add to your happiness. And more important, it'll prepare you for future happiness. Not one day we're looking for you to have a happy life. So God bless you. We look forward to being with you next Wednesday evening, 6:30.
Amen.
Have a great week. God bless you.